What is up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of the Black Experience, y'all. Welcome back to another episode in season 5. Thank you so much to all of you guys who have supported me throughout these last 2 years plus of this podcast. Thank you. If you are a new viewer, new listener, welcome to the journey that we are on. This is exciting times. I want to thank you all for 3,000 plus subscribers. This is uh, honestly mind blowing to me how much we've quickly grown. So thank you. For that, guys, as usual, I have a very special guest with me today, as I usually do. Today, I have someone who is the CEO of a company called Waffles and Whatnot, as well as the COO of Aivalution, a company that is brand new, 27 days old to this day, as to this recording, and is tapping into the AI sector that is growing every single day that we see. So without further ado, y'all, let's put our hands together and let's bring up Mr. Derrick Green. What's going on,
What's up,
Derrick?
brother? I'm blessed, man. I'm absolutely blessed. How you doing today?
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well. I tried my best with that intro because CEO, COO, man, you're doing a lot, man. You're doing great things.
I'm just a dude, man. Yeah.
Are you so tell me how is the weather where you are right now currently?
So I actually arrived in Anchorage, Alaska this morning, and I brought the snow with me. When I arrived at 1 o'clock this morning, there was no snow on the ground, and right now there's about 3 inches. So
Oh man. Oh
yeah,
man. Are you so I'm assuming you're not a fan of the snow or you like the snow that you brought
you know,
to
man, I love the snow in Alaska. I've just been up here since 2005, and that's nearly 20 years of snow in winters. So I figured I had enough. And this year, I decided to snowbird with my family. So I took my family down to the lower 48. Right now, they're in Los Angeles. That's where I just came from. So that's our 11th state this winter.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, the snow is something, man. I like it during the Christmas season, let's just say. But then outside from that, if it gets to a point where, I can't drive or people are slipping and sliding, then I'm like, that's too much.
Man, it impacts people differently. Like I was just in Houston and they had some snowfall. It was only like an inch of snow and it
Yeah.
shut down everything. Grocery stores putting signs on the door, inclement due to inclement weather, we'll be closed tomorrow. The airport completely shut down, no flights whatsoever. And I'm like, what is this? Because in Alaska, when it starts to snow, we're all like, yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
Grab the snowboards, grab the skis, and let's
Right.
go outside.
Let the party begin. We're the same way as
Exactly.
Houston. We're the same way as Houston. Seattle, we don't know what to do. We were like, oh my gosh. An inch could like, yeah, shut down the whole airport though. That is insane. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, Derek, man, I appreciate you taking the time, man. This is we only met about a week ago, believe it or not. And here we are, connecting on my platform and we'll be connecting on yours soon too. So very excited about that. To kick it off, if you could talk to the audience a little bit and share us a little bit about your background info, kind of where you come from, your childhood, favorite childhood memories, family, all that good stuff.
All right. Brother, I will give you a fire hose of topics right now, and you can pick which one you want to run with. So I'm originally from a place called Fort Pierce, Florida. Grew up there. By the time I actually left for the military at 17, I had already endured a plethora of adverse childhood experiences. They're called ACEs. If you ever heard of the ACEs study, Adverse Childhood Experiences Study, these things included things like childhood sexual abuse, substance abuse, or witnessing substance abuse, domestic violence against my mom or others, witnessing incarceration of a family member, physical abuse, physical neglect, emotional abuse, emotional neglect, you name it, it was there. A couple of years later, I ended up losing my sister to murder and then later losing my grandmother to murder as well. So, with all of those various traumas that I experienced, I had actually joined the U.S. Army, went off and became a military policeman. So, went to Fort McClellan, became a military policeman, traveled to various places around the world. Very thankful for that, and essentially became the change that I needed in various aspects of my life. So, as a military policeman, I served in my later years as a domestic violence victim advocate, a suicide interventionist, a sexual assault victim advocate, a resiliency trainer, teaching people how to bounce back when life kicks you in the teeth. Um, I was married, and when I was on my way to Iraq, my wife actually found a lump in her breast. Turned out that that lump was cancerous, so they pulled me back, and I then spent the next 6 years taking care of my wife. And as I took care of her, her third day of chemo was always her worst day. And but after 3 days of nausea and sometimes extreme vomiting, she wouldn't have any energy left. And so I created something. It was a pancake that was in alignment with something called BRAT: bananas, rice, apples, and toast. And with that BRAT compliant pancake, she was able to, if she was only able to hold down 2 bites of it, she would get some sustenance from it.
Mhm.
At the same time that that was happening, my mom was battling HIV. And my mom had so many pesticides in her system that she could no longer keep the HIV at bay. So she developed AIDS. And as she developed AIDS, I brought her up to Alaska, and I saw that my mom had this tackle box of pills. And in that tackle box, I looked at it and saw what I could replace with spices or ingredients. And so after tinkering around for a while, I eventually came up with a chicken breading that I then opened a restaurant called Waffles and Whatnot.
Wow.
And I took that pancake recipe that I had made for my wife and for my mom,
Yeah.
and then the chicken batter mix that I had made for my mom, along with the macaroni and cheese recipe and a sauce that goes on the side of it. And that turned that whole thing into a business. But when my mom eats that plate of food, there's at least six different pills that she didn't have to swallow on a daily basis. If she managed to eat that whole plate, there were about 10 different pills that she wouldn't have to swallow on a daily basis. And that was a way of providing some nutritional value or some type of dignity back to her as she battled cancer and AIDS. Now, my mom was actually one of the longest living HIV patients in the United States, but eventually she lost that battle. My wife lost her battle with cancer after 6 years. My mom lost her battle with AIDS after nearly 30 years. And that left me in this position. I also lost my grandmother to food related illnesses, where I developed this desire to create an alternative to people so that in poorer communities across the country,
Mhm.
a lot of places where food deserts exist, but a lot of franchises, industrialized complexes thrive. I wanted to be able to create an opportunity and still want to be able to create an opportunity for people to have a different choice. So with Waffles and Whatnot, I'm now seeking to turn that into the largest Black-owned franchise in American history.
Wow.
This is a journey
Oh
that's
man.
just getting started.
Yeah.
And then we talked about Aivalution. And so with Aivalution, I've now partnered with a previous guest of yours. His name is Ken Miller. He's been a
Mhm.
longtime
Shout
mentor
out
of
to
mine.
Ken. Yeah,
Shout out
he's
to Ken.
amazing.
Yeah. So I met Ken in 2015. Our relationship has progressed through mentorship and different relationship interactions whereby now we're 50-50 founders of Aivalution, which is a company that takes AI trained virtual assistants
Mhm.
and performs two different types of services. There's TAS, which is talent as a service. That's where somebody just needs a personal assistant for something. And so we train that VA and we hand them off to that client. And then there's EASE, which is empowerment as a service. That's our trademark copyrighted name. But
Mhm.
empowerment as a service is where we analyze the client, understands the full needs of what it is that they are desiring to do towards their greatest fulfillment, and figure out how can we leverage virtual assistants and artificial intelligence to help them rise up towards their greatness.
Wow. You weren't lying about the fire hose of information, were you?
Hey, let's go.
No, 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 no. But I love it. There is so much, Derek, to unpack in there. I wanna reel it back to family a bit. Um,
Okay.
First of all, I'm very sorry for your losses. Um, you know, you, I've never, I haven't met too many people that are that open with their story, but you are one of them, and the other person is Ken Miller, actually.
Yep.
And when I did his podcast, two people were astonished as to how open he was with his own story and his upbringing, the highs and the lows, everything. And so I just wanted to throw that out there. What was it, when your wife, you noticed the lump and it made you think of Brat? right? Bananas, rice, apples, and toast. Um, how did I guess like how were you able to come up with something like that after? Because most people, let's say if something that happens like that, if their wife, their husband, their spouse, right, develops cancer or any kind of disease, their initial instinct obviously is to be in that mourning phase and kind of like, emotional high. But you were able
Yeah.
to, I'm sure you had that, but then you were also able to create something else and say, hey, let's create this food right here that, could be healthy for you. Where did that mindset come from?
Brother, I've always been a man that desired to have an impact. I've always desired and have been an empath for my entire life. And perhaps it was it. So first of all, I do deep dives into myself. I'm a very introspective person and I seek to understand what wired me the way that I am. So perhaps it was the fact that I was molested and raped as a kid that caused me to be such an empath or to have such a deeper connection with my emotional state that caused me to relate to people more. But in that, I would watch my wife struggle and I would see my mom struggle. At some point, my mom had this disease called pemphigus, and it looked like somebody took a vial of fire ants and shoved it down her mouth and closed her mouth and then super glued um, like something that looks like frosted flakes, bloody frosted flakes on her lips. And I know that may be very graphic for the audience, but that was the life that she had to live. And I had to watch her try and eat through that and talk through that and live a life through that. Sometimes being able to go outside and other times not. She had another disease that was almost like living with rigor mortis while she was existing, while she's still alive. And you touch her and she would just moan. So with that, man, we tried to do everything that the doctors told us to do for my mom. Give her fresh, raw, organic things, give her quinoa, kale, give her cold pressed juices, and all of this type of stuff. I bought the fanciest equipment that we can put in her house and tried to get her to do these things. But if anyone has ever done a juice diet, they understand that if your body's not used to that, it can cause even more issues and tear your stomach up as it's resetting your gut microbiome. And so
Mhm.
I started studying what are the different foods that can actually help a person heal, because the body is an amazing machine and it can heal itself if you allow it to. And so as my wife battled and my mom battled, and I had some very profound experiences of my life where both of them on separate occasions had asked me to put a bullet in their head to end their suffering. And let me tell you, if you've never been a husband or a son, a husband looking at his wife or a son looking at his mother that seriously considered putting a bullet in their head to end their misery, then I don't know how much you can relate to this, but I can tell you this, that having seriously considered that, and so much so to even reach out to my in-laws and make sure that they could take care of our daughter, my wife's, my wife and I's daughter, if I went to prison, or debating, like looking at my mom, and it's not that she wanted to die. She just didn't want to be in pain anymore. And then realizing that that pain originated from food with either one of them, that it originated from food. It triggered something inside of me. So this research, I've always been uh, a geeky, nerdy type kid. I used to get bullied for it as a kid because I would read encyclopedias and stuff.
Mhm.
But I would read scientific journals and different books to begin learning the impact of food. And I began learning about the gut microbiome. And I began learning how you can reset the gut microbiome and how it produces more than 55,000 chemicals that regulate who you are as a man or regulates how each one of us are. And that if you've ever assisted somebody that's gone through chemotherapy, you'll understand that most chemotherapies cannot penetrate something called the blood brain barrier,
Mhm.
but that the body has something called the vagus nerve that goes directly from the gut
Mhm.
straight into the brain. It bypasses the blood brain barrier, which
Wow.
means that the the foods that you eat have a direct impact on the chemicals produced in your gut, which have a direct impact on how you feel.
Right.
They control and help regulate your emotions. Things like depression, anxiety, the fatigue that you feel, the excitement that you feel, all of that is related to what you eat.
Mhm.
So, with that being said, and with that knowledge, what else could I do but try my best to be the best son or the best husband that I could be at that stage, using the knowledge that I have to leverage that and say, let me step into the kitchen. It's the one way that I felt that I could have an impact when life for me felt hopeless otherwise, trying to support either one of these women that I loved through their pain and through their struggle.
Wow. Derek, is so interesting because today, just earlier today, I was watching one of my favorite podcasts that I watched, the PBD podcast, and he had someone who was a health expert, and he was pretty much just saying any of the processed foods out there, big pharma, everything it's poison. It's energy drinks, fast food, like all these foods that we, relatively here. I don't think we realize just how bad they are. That he talked about seed oils. I didn't even know what those were. All those chemicals, red 40, yellow 3, all these extra ingredients out there. How much of the I guess like how are you able to get past that blame game? Because I feel like most people, they think of big pharma, they think of the food industries, they're like they're trying to kill us, they're trying to poison us. How are you able to get past that stage and be like, you know what? Yes, okay, it is what it is. Now let me see what I can do for my mom and for my wife.
That's a great question. There's a realization that I had when it came to my mom, actually. No matter how much fresh, raw, organic ingredients we tried to put into her,
Hmm.
she liked what she liked. She grew up eating collard greens and grits, growing mustard greens. She grew up eating fried fish and fried chicken, macaroni and cheese, and stuff like this. So, although we tried to change her diet into I call it like a California diet, she wasn't having it. You know,
Yeah.
the doctors were like, "Well, just replace your grits with quinoa." And she tried it, and it was just like, "I ain't eating that crap." And so she wanted her grits. Well, what are grits? Grits are just ground up corn. So instead of giving her the cheap grits, we can replace that with the organic stone ground grits that are minimally processed as can. Now, it
Hmm.
takes longer to cook them, but it's just a small little change. Looking at the amount of protein that she needed to eat on a daily basis, it's like, all right, if you're going to eat fried chicken, let me take some chicken breasts and slice these up so that you have the amount of protein that you need on a daily basis. Let me formulate this chicken coating that we in my restaurant we double dip, or what I call triple dip, actually. So you dip it in the flour, you dip it in the egg wash, and then you dip it back into the flour again before it goes into the grease. Well, in doing that, I've coated each chicken strip with the amount of seasonings that my mom needed. So that, for instance, when she ate 3 of my chicken strips,
Yeah.
just those 3 chicken strips alone gave her daily dose of turmeric that she needed. Actually, the active ingredient in turmeric is curcumin, and
Wow.
that's more accurately what she needed. And so by eating the 3 chicken strips, she would get her daily dose of the curcumin. She'd get her daily dose of garlic from eating the 5 ounce scoop of macaroni and cheese that we serve on a daily basis. When
Man.
it comes to things like realigning or helping her gut microbiome have food, well, their primary food is fiber. So I can take a soluble fiber like inulin,
Hmm.
which is a powder form, and I can mix that into something like whipped cream, so that now that whipped cream tastes like ice cream and she'll enjoy eating it. Is very palatable, but she's getting her daily dose of fiber. And that's what most Americans are actually deficient in, is fiber. It's one of the greatest deficiencies that we have.
Yeah.
So what you talked about with the processed foods is very important, because what I realized is that I wasn't going to be able to fight the years of socialization that has gone on through marketing campaigns, where as a kid I grew up watching commercials of Kicks, you know,
Yeah.
what is that, mom tested, kid approved, or Frosted Flakes, they're great,
Yeah. The
or
tiger. Tony the
or
tiger.
Pops, or Cocoa Pebbles versus Fruity Pebbles, which one is better?
Hmm.
It's not whether you should be eating these cereal, it's which one of those is better, the Cocoa Pebbles or the Fruity Pebbles, things
Right.
like that. And when you, as an adult, start to realize, I began to realize that all of these things were marketing campaigns. The entire breakfast industry was created as a marketing campaign. Literally. When I started to realize all of that, I realized that, you know what? If you're going to fight fire with fire, and I began reading books like Blue Ocean Strategies, so that you understand that you can't just build a better mousetrap. You need to build something that's at least 10 times better than what exists if you hope to fight that thing that you're trying to replace. So when it comes to the industrial food complex, they have a grip on the American psyche, not just our stomachs, but on our minds.
Mm-hmm.
How can I counter that? Don't try to counter it. Just create a restaurant that serves the best of everything that we can imagine on this menu. When you come eat at my restaurant, if you eat a waffle, I want it to be the best waffle that you've ever eaten in your life. If you eat my macaroni and cheese, I want it to be the best macaroni and cheese you've eaten in your life. And if it's not, I'll go back to the kitchen and I'll keep working on it to perfect it. I want you to have a foodgasm when you eat my food.
Yeah.
And when people see us on diners, drive-ins, and dives, and they see Guy Fieri bite into this sandwich that's just layered with all this goodness, the waffles, the bacon, the barbecue sauce, the macaroni and cheese, the chicken strips, and all this, and he's just like, oh, diving into this thing. And he has a mangasm on national TV. That's legit and that's real. And that, if I can get people to just focus on how good the food tastes,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't have to talk about the health of the food, then in some ways I can reverse engineer what the industrial food complex has done over the years, whereby they've been able to replace chicken with chicken product or beef with beef product.
Mm-hmm.
I can reverse engineer that and bring healthier versions of these things back into the stomach. Now, it's not healthy. Fried chicken, you'll never hear me say that fried chicken is healthy, especially since the seed oils that we have to fry these things in, because these are the oils that are approved by the FDA and are available en masse, right? They've limited the scalability of alternatives like beef tallow, right, which is a rendered beef fat. So they've essentially pigeonholed us into using certain products. And then within those industries, they have to add certain chemicals to those products in order to, for instance, have an anti-foaming agent.
Oh, man.
So there are certain things that we're ingesting when you eat fried foods or foods prepared in certain ways that you will never hear me say is healthy. You will not hear me say that sugar is healthy for you, period.
Right.
But if you're going to eat it, I would rather you eat what I produce, where I can tell you every single ingredient and every single item that is on our menu.
Right.
Versus you eating from a package that has 30 ingredients and you don't know what 29 of them mean.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like you're saying, we're trying to get as close to zero as possible. Although zero is not possible necessarily, let's try to at least change those unhealthy stuff like cereals, for example, and say, okay, which one is the healthiest? Can we come up with a healthier alternative, whatever? I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
It's actually part of there. And again, I'm not even just saying this for the podcast. I'm like 2025. I've taken my resolution list very seriously, and I've actually been in touch with a food coach and stuff like that to be able to say, you know what, my temptations personally are always spicy Cheetos, and cookies like Oreos, and they've been helping me try to say, okay, you like chips, cool. What are some healthy alternatives than hot spicy Cheetos or whatever? What are some healthier alternatives than Oreos and stuff? Oreos, I didn't realize how unhealthy they were. There was like a guy who was like, he had like a flame and he was like blasting the Oreo and it did not like melt immediately at all. And someone was saying it was the preservatives. I was like, I don't know if I could eat Oreo again after that.
Man, there are so many things that have been marketed to us as food.
Yeah.
And the way that it works, bro, is if you can introduce anything to anybody if you do it slow enough. Mm-hmm. And if you have a great enough marketing campaign, I can get you to sit and eat half a pack of Oreos and some chocolate milk, ultra processed chocolate milk. Yeah. But neither one of them are actual foods. They're compilations of chemicals that have been put together that produce a certain flavor profile that can trigger certain responses in your body when they hit your gut and remind you that the gut produces over 55,000 chemicals. So when you're talking about the chemicals that produce addiction, I can craft certain foods to cause you to become addicted to those things. This is why sugar is the most addictive substance on earth.
Hmm. Wow. To the average listener right now or viewer, you know, they're thinking right now, okay, all these things that Derrick is saying is great. Heck, I might even visit his restaurant, and we'll plug your restaurant, where to find the nearest location near them. What is that first next step that someone can take right now?
When it comes to gaining control of your life, you must realize first that you have an addiction to food. Most people have an addiction to food. Nearly every human being that's ever existed has an addiction to food because we're taught that we need to eat 3 meals a day. Some of us are taught we need to eat 3 meals a day plus 2 snacks. Some of us are taught that we need to eat 6 meals a day. All of those are marketing campaigns. The
Mhm.
truth is, there's a reason that things like fasting is mentioned more than 70 times in the Bible. At some point, you're asking, what is the next best step? I would challenge any person to go on YouTube or go on an AI thing like an LLM, like a Chat GPT or a Claude.com or a Google Gemini, whatever it is that you want to go to,
Mhm.
and just look up the benefits of fasting, not just intermittent fasting or time restricted eating, but completely closing up your mouth and going on a water only fast. Look at what it does in just 5 days to your body. Look at the health impact. Even if you close your mouth for 24 hours, look at what it does to your body. Years ago, they were talking about stem cell research, stem cells, stem cells, stem cells. And there was debate whether or not this was ethical or unethical because stem cells can become any cell, blah, blah,
Mhm.
blah.
Right.
Your body can produce its own stem cells if you stop putting food in your mouth. You stop putting food in your mouth, you give your body 5 to 7 days, it will actually begin producing its own stem cells, which then are used to repair different ailments that you have within you. And these are things that's free. You don't need to eat at my restaurant. I say
Yep.
this to any person. Let me make sure I'm looking at the camera as I say this. To any person, you don't need to eat at my restaurant. You need to research and understand the benefits of things like fasting and understand what you're putting into your body and when you should actually turn it off and allow your body to reset. That's what it boils down to, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, that's some good stuff, Derrick. Good stuff early on too, man. I love that. Um, Kind of pivoting to the motivation side of things. Now, I know we kind of talked about, and you shared a lot of personal details about family losses and things and what's kind of promoted you and pushed you to come up with that mindset to even come up with waffles and whatnot and deep dive into food. When you wake up in the morning, Derrick, what is it that personally that drives you? Do you have that why? Do you have that thing that just pulls your heartstrings every morning?
If I could read something to you, another great question, bro. Look, I just want to show you. I'm opening my phone. Hopefully you can see that.
I can
When I
see that,
open
yeah.
up when I open up my notes, the first thing there is an
And now it just
affirmation.
disappeared again with the background.
Bef-
But go ahead.
Before I get out of bed, the very first thing I do, internally, I say thank you, and then I read an affirmation. This affirmation begins, thank you, God, for another day and opportunity to get it right. I am so happy and grateful that money keeps coming to me in increasing quantities from multiple sources on a continual basis. I earn more money in my sleep than I can spend while awake. I am so happy and grateful that I am healthy, whole, and loved by others and myself. I am God's highest form of creation, and I am worthy of all the good in the world. I give my ever expanding services back in reciprocity. I give the best of myself to God, my family, and my self development. That's the Trinity that has my back and strengthens the backs of others. I walk in closer alignment with God every day of my life. Now, that affirmation continues, but what I do on a daily basis, first, I'm not a religious person. I don't subscribe to any religion. I'm not a Christian. I'm not a Muslim. I'm not a Jew. I'm not any of those. I'm a person that strives to walk in deeper alignment with God's assignment for my life every single day, period. With that, I read the affirmation and I listen. I'll go sentence by sentence. What feels true and what doesn't? If there's any statement that I read from this affirmation that feels untrue, I go within myself to understand why it feels untrue. Right.
Yeah.
And I would encourage anybody that's listening to this from your audience to, you don't have to copy my affirmation. You can develop your own. A lot of this is influenced by things like Think and Grow Rich from Napoleon Hill, by Bob Proctor, by Viktor Frankl, by John Maxwell. I just pieced together a lot of different speakers and influencers that influence them.
Mm-hmm.
If I read this, and as I read this, I'm seeking to understand myself internally, what's happening inside of me. For me, no matter what you see externally, everything originates inside. I mean, brother, you can look around yourself and anything you can see in your environment, anything right now, us looking at our Zoom backgrounds,
Yes.
every single aspect of your life originated in the mind of a man. The picture on your wall, the paint behind you, what is pigment? Who came up with the name pigment? Who decided that a door must exist? At some point in human history, there was no such thing as a door. There was no such thing as a chair. There was no such thing as a painting.
Starting right here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mr. Naismith, created basketball. I see you got Jordan in the air behind you back there.
MJ.
All of that originated as the mind or from the mind of a man. It all starts with your thought. So the very first thing you can do if you want to gain better control of your life is pay attention to your thoughts in the morning when you wake up. And as you pay attention to your thoughts, you gain greater understanding of who you are and what drives you. And if you can pay attention to the things that cause you to believe the things that you believe, what are the thoughts that the events that caused a thought that was attached to a feeling that caused a belief, a deep held value or something within you?
Right.
So for instance, if earlier we mentioned the ACEs, the Adverse Childhood Experiences Study.
Yes.
There are all types of childhood traumas that lead to later manifestations in life. During COVID, they talked a lot about comorbidities. So are you a diabetic? Do you have heart disease? Different things like this, high blood pressure. A lot of people don't realize that much of that can be attributed or correlated to things that have happened in your early childhood before you were 18 years old. Mm-hmm. So you can have a child that was physically abused, and that physical abuse can lead to them developing cancer later in their life.
Wow.
Because of the chronic stress that has been built up in their system. And you may have, for instance, if I grew up in an environment where my mom, when she was a raging alcoholic and substance abuser, and she had, different men coming through at various times, well, that caused insecurity. I didn't know if when she came home, she was going to be in a good mood or a bad mood. Is she going to be a happy drunk today? Or is she going to be a mad drunk today, upset that we ruined her life and her body and that she can't go out and do the things that she wants to do? And if, depending on which drunk came home, is she going to pick up the nearest item and begin beating me with it? Right. So there's that insecurity there. There's always this stress, and that stress causes something called hypervigilance, where I'm always on edge. I'm always looking. I'm always alert. Right.
Yeah.
Many kids that grow up in environments where they endured abuse or neglect had to develop a level of hypervigilance so that you understand. And this is something that you may have heard from Ken, when his dad walked in the house, he could tell by the way the keys hit the counter or the table what mood his dad was in. You can tell by the heaviness of the footstep, right, what mood they're in. I could tell when my mom came home, literally within the first 3 steps of her walking in the house, what type of day we're about to have. If she came in and she instantly started noticing anything that was out of place, why is that on the floor? Why ain't the kitchen clean? Why aren't this happening? Where's the food? Why isn't this? Why is bam, bam? Then it was on and popping. It was going to be a very short time period before she grabbed something, whether it was a switch, an extension cord, a piece of water hose, whatever she could grab, and she was going to begin swinging. So that hypervigilance, always being on alert, caused stress. That stress over time developed and normalized. And many of us have normalized these reactions to traumatic experiences, and we don't even realize why we do the things that we do now. There are women and men walking around right now that are promiscuous, that are engaging in risky sexual behaviors,
Hmm.
and they don't understand that it's because somebody touched them when they were a kid. Or there are people that will clear their plates. They will eat to literally they're about to bust, where they have to open their pants, so they wear yoga like stretch clothes.
Yeah.
So they eat and it's gluttonous, and they don't realize that it's connected to, as a kid, they may have had food insecurity where they didn't necessarily know where the next meal was coming from, or their parents told them something like, "I remember my mom came home, her boyfriend had some Wendy's, and I asked could I have some, and my mom was on one of those. She was on one that day,
Yeah.
and she made me eat in front of everybody the entire bag of Wendy's, the entire bag as a little kid.
Wow.
And when I vomited, she just made me wipe my face and keep eating that entire bag of Wendy's, right? And at the same time, she's berating me, right, for being greedy. And so there are other things that develop where you're just like, okay, don't ask for food, or if you do get food, eat it all, like clear the plate. And some people don't realize that their behavior today as an adult, where they clear the plate or they overeat, is related to something that happened when they were 4, 5, 6, 7 years old.
Oh man. Derek, there's some things that I've thought about in my past that I'm not going to share it on here, but we can talk, sometime in the future. But yeah, I think, yeah, because I have my own, I feel like everyone has their own trauma in the
Yep.
past. And it's very sad. Because in the moment too, especially if you're a stranger and you see someone else doing that, like overeating or something, it's easy for us to look at someone and be like, oh, look at that fatty or whatever. Look at him eating
Yep.
all over. Little do we know the childhood he or she had. Um,
Right.
Derek, how are you able to take your past and not let that burden you and rise up to now where you're the CEO of Waffles and Whatnot and the COO of Evolution? Like, how are you able to rise out of the ashes and be this speaker that you are now?
Brother, I wasn't always this man. When my wife was on her deathbed, so we were married for 14 years. And coming back full circle to that story, we were actually divorcing when I was on my way to Iraq. But she found that lump, and that put a halt on everything. And I came back to be a friend and to be a partner in her journey. Well, eventually, during that 6 year battle, I actually moved out, got my own apartment, was living on my own. We filed a separation and everything. But I was getting ready to deploy and to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. And
Mhm.
she reached out and said, I need you to come back. And so I came back to the house, and I spent the last 3 months of her life locked into a bedroom with her. And in those 3 months, we had the deepest conversations I'd ever had with any other soul in existence. And what it taught me is that I literally walked away with the belief that I had never had an authentic conversation in my entire life, that all of my interactions had been superficial. What I realized from her is that there's a deeper level of connection if you're willing to be vulnerable and open up. And what we both concluded while she was on her deathbed was that we should have never been together. We started out as friends with benefits, and we probably should have just kept it that way and kept it moving. The marriage thing was unnecessary, but we allowed the pressures of society to cause us to continue to maintain a relationship that was unhealthy. And I made a promise to her on her deathbed, because what I saw with her is that she was the most regret filled person I had ever met in my life. There's a quote by Les Brown where he says that when you're at your deathbed, all that's left standing around you are the hopes and dreams that you never fulfilled, the books that you didn't write, the songs you didn't sing, the dances you didn't move to.
Yes.
And they're standing around you with large, angry eyes, saying that we were supposed to live, we were supposed to come to existence, but now we have to die with you forever. And there's truth in that. I watched it. I watched regret stand around her bed. I watched her dreams torment her. I listened to her cry as she realized that at some point, God took her ability to walk. At some point, God took her ability to get out of the bed and go to the bathroom on her own. At some point, God took her ability to talk. He took her ability to see. The cancer blinded her. And at every stage of that, there was just a deeper commitment within myself. I will live every day of my life in pursuit of the man that I believe that God created me to be. What is my purpose? So many people walk around aimlessly through life. They've been guided by their parents that paid for their education. So they became a doctor, they became an accountant, they became a lawyer, they became whatever because the parents paid for it. But that's not what they feel their gift is. That's not what they feel their talent or their passion is. But because of that convenience of that thing, they stay in that funnel. And so those are some of the most miserable people. I know that because I was a suicide interventionist. I've talked with generals in the military that are ready to suck start their service weapon because they've spent all this time in the military just because it was convenient and they got a paycheck on the first and the 15th. Yes, even colonels and generals, officers at that level mm-hmm. do these things. And they didn't go after their purpose, and they feel like they had no purpose. I talked to a guy just the other day, 62 years old. He feels like he's never found a purpose in his life. And every day he wakes up, he curses that he woke up because he was hoping that that would be the day that he passes away. I refuse to live like that. Not only do I refuse to live like that, I refuse to take any experience of my life to the grave with me. Because I don't know, brother, what story I'm going to tell, what statement I'm going to say that will inspire someone else to begin discovering their purpose and living on purpose for their purpose. I don't know what I'm going to say that will trigger somebody that rises up and becomes the next Nelson Mandela or the next Maya Angelou or the next Michael Jackson or the next Ben Carson. I don't know what's going to inspire people to do that. And it would be selfish of me, in my opinion, to go to my grave with all of these experiences and life lessons that I've learned, because all of these things that happened in my life, these experiences, they weren't things that happened to me. They were things that happened for me. Wow. Every experience of my life happened for me to arrive at this place right now in my existence, where I can sit with a man or a woman who has just been raped, who has been neglected, who has been in a domestic violence situation, who has been suicidal, who has been at any of these traumatic experiences. I can sit and maintain my emotional regulation, knowing that I've already overcome what the thing that they're trying to get through right now. If that makes sense.
Sure does.
I'm thankful and grateful literally for every second of my life. And I appreciate your condolences earlier, saying you're sorry for my loss, but please don't feel sorry for me for a second. You see, because every single one of those experiences of my life shaped me into who I am right now. And I'm one of the people, I don't know how many people you have in your life that can say they're living their dreams, but on a daily basis, bro, so help me God, on a daily basis, I am walking in alignment with my assignment, which means I'm living my dream. For me, and I'll shut up after this. I realize I've been on a long riff, but when I stand on stage, I tell people a couple things. First, I introduce myself as Chef Derrick Green, and I tell them I'll feed anybody, but I'm not for everybody. One of the other things I'll tell them is that I don't believe that you have to die to go to hell. I personally believe that hell is the inability for a man or woman to look in the mirror and love themselves.
Wow.
And if they, especially if they are a person that's religious or spiritual, and they believe that they were created by God in God's image, and they can't look in the mirror and appreciate the beauty of who they are, if they look in the mirror and all they can find is fault with themselves, I'm fat, I'm ugly, I'm stupid, I make dumb decisions, I'm horrible with money, I'm black, I'm too white, I'm too whatever, then it means that they lack the ability to accept the beauty and the grace of God. And how is that not hell?
Yeah. I'm at a loss of words, Derek. I mean, ah, I used to listen to Les Brown actually when I was in high school, when I was struggling a lot with my self-esteem and self-image issues that I had. He would be the one person where I would go into the garage, and I'm a big basketball fan, so I would always just do my dribbling drills while listening to him. And I've heard specifically the one you said about the dreams, and that haunted me so much. Um, that I was like, I'd rather get rejected, be it going for the basketball team, or going to ask this girl out on a date, or whatever it is. I'd rather get rejected than regret at 80 and be like, what if I asked her out? She could have been my wife. What if I went for this path? Maybe I could have had enough money for my grandkids or something. That that just that eats me up right now thinking about it right now in my 20s. So
Brother, you don't know what is intended behind every experience of your life. You can guess at it, but you don't know. Maybe you were meant to ask that girl out so that she can reject you and say something flip to you so that you then corrected some flaw within yourself that eventually you learn to realize the perfection of yourself. And you realize that what that girl pointed out to you wasn't true at all because you are a good man at your core or at your soul. You see, and the only way that you arrived there was by her rejection and pointing that thing out. You don't know what God actually has in store for you.
yeah. 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 It goes, it's like the saying, uh, God's rejection is his protection, if you know what I mean. You ever heard that
Yep.
before? Yeah. Yeah. What a way to see it though, Derek. I've been working on my mindset to kind of be more positive and see things like that too. But that is beautiful. That is beautiful, Derek. Let's talk a little bit about, because you talked about purpose and you talked about impact on people. I'm looking at your background right now. Evolution. Your success is our purpose. That little banner that I love it that's going up
Yep.
right there. Tell us a little bit about evolution and kind of how that started and how that's going so far as a COO.
So years ago in 2019, I ended up losing my house and my restaurant within 24 hours of each other. It was because I didn't have, well, there's various reasons, but taking responsibility for it, saying I mismanaged the restaurant. I had never opened a restaurant before. I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I had very successful business going where we were packing out the house on a daily basis, but there were so many little micro things that had been plaguing me that I didn't know what I didn't know back then.
Mhm.
I lost that restaurant. I lost my house. I ended up hiring virtual assistants. And so I've been working with virtual assistants for years now. And what I came to understand that once I achieved financial freedom, whereby my monthly revenue surpassed my monthly expenses, I gained a level of freedom. And with that freedom came the ability to pursue my purpose versus being led by the dictates of a man. You see, you can't tempt me with a $200,000 job. You can't tempt me with $1 million paycheck. I don't need it. Everything that I need is already provided to me. Evolution is about this. I asked a question, and I want the audience to hear this. I asked a question of myself. Actually, I was talking with my wife, and I said, if you ever heard of Earl Nightingale, and he has this story about acres of diamonds. And I said, what if the diamond that you need, what would you do if God told you that the biggest diamond that's ever been discovered in the history of man is in your backyard? Right?
I'd go look
What
for
would
it.
you exactly? Now, let me ask you this. How much time would you spend looking for it? If God told you that the biggest diamond that's ever existed in the history of man is in your backyard, how much time would you spend looking for it?
As much as needed.
You would restructure your entire life
Yes.
around it. You
Mhm.
wouldn't be talking to friends anymore because they're distractions. You wouldn't go work that job that you can't stand anymore because they're distractions. Whatever you would need to do to be able to keep the roof over your head while you dug for that diamond, you
Mhm.
would do it. And what I came to realize is that as you're digging for that diamond, no matter how far down you have to dig, shovel load by shovel load, 1 million, 2 million, $3 million, $4 million, $5 million, $10 million, $20 million, $30 million, $40 million, $50 million, $60 million, $70 million, $80 million, $90 million, $100 million, $200 million, $300 million, $400 million, $500 million, $600 million, $700 million, $800 million, $900 million, $1000 million, $2000 million, $3000 million, $400000, $500000, $1000000, $1000000, $1000000, $1000000, $1000000, $1000000, $1000000, $1000000, $1000000, $1000000, $1000000, $1000000, $1000000, $1000000, $1000000, $1000000, $1000000, $1000000, $1000000, $1000000, $1000000, $1000000, $1000000, $1000000, $1000000, $1000000, $1000000, $1000000, $1 First of all, in between the tings of the shovel hitting the ground and you lifting it up for the next one, there's a silence that exists. And that's in that silence is where you'll connect with God. And by connecting with God, I'm talking about a deeper conversation within yourself, because eventually all your friends will fall away. They'll think you're crazy. Oh, he heard the voice of God, and so now he's digging in his backyard. This dude's stupid. And if you truly felt like you heard the voice of God, then you'll move with the faith of Moses. You'll move with the faith of some of those biblical references that, you know, like the people, the guy that exited the boat, right, to walk on the water, because you believe that you've heard this. Now, as you continue digging and digging and digging, eventually you look in the mirror and realize that you don't need any of that outside stuff, because everything that you always needed is inside of you. And by the time you get to the diamond, you don't need it anymore. There's no use for it. You don't need the house. You've already figured out how to take care of yourself. You don't need the friends. You've already figured out how to be alone. They've judged you. You don't need anything outside of what's inside of you. So if you can learn to internalize that now and understand that you already have everything that you need, right, via the dreams that we call seeds that have been planted inside of you, then you'll understand that the greatest thing that you could do for yourself is to pursue the seeds implanted inside of you. No one else can hear your dreams. I don't care how fluent you are at what language you're speaking. Only you can actually hear your dreams. Aivalution is about wrapping services around people that choose to go after their dreams that they hear inside of them. What is the purpose that they feel that they're here on earth to do? Aivalution desires to be the Tim Grover to the Michael Jackson. I mean, to the Michael Jordan.
Yes.
Right? Who's that coach behind you? Who's that backup team that you have that as you pursue your dream, we're not here to judge you. We're listening to understand. What are you hearing? Okay. And how can we help? Can we be the marketing team behind you? So we have financial services. I had a client onboarding right before this call, actually, and the client is beating themselves up because they're like, I don't know what we did last year. I don't know what we grossed. I don't know what our net was. I don't know what this was or what that was. All I know is that I literally have the notebook right here in front of me. There's a 29% fee. There's a tech fee, a membership fee, a licensing fee, a credit card processing fee, blah, blah, blah. They have all these things broken down. But you know what? You don't need to know all of that stuff, because I have someone on my team that loves numbers. They love finding fees. They love finding hidden fees, and they love figuring out how to actually increase your take home, your net profit. You don't need to know marketing. I have people that love marketing, every aspect of it. Same thing with sales. Same thing with administrative issues. Whatever it is where you feel that you're weak, I have people on the Aivalution team that love that thing. And because I have a team of dreamers, where each one of the members of my Aivalution team, they're not just VAs, bro. These are people that their dream is in alignment with supporting you. So when I say that your success is our purpose, that's where that comes from. These are people from around the world, from the Philippines, from Ghana, from Uganda, from Belarus, from the United States, people from around the world whose dream is to support the success of somebody else who deserves their support, because they're going after something with such conviction that they feel that God implanted that thing in them. That's what Aivalution is about.
That is so beautiful. And the fact that it's from people from all over the country and the world, and that is a beautiful image, Derrick, man. Where do you talking about Aivalution and talking about Waffles and Whatnot? What are your kind of aspirations? Because you said right now you feel like you're living your dream life right now, and you're grateful for that right now, what God has been able to give you. Where do you see these two companies of yours growing and heading towards, or what is that? Is there like a certain destiny that you want them to reach?
Absolutely. So with Waffles and Whatnot, I want to build the largest franchise in American history, because I want it to have a measurable impact on the health of humanity. I want this spread out globally. I wanted to, in the same way that Elon was able to spread Starlink across the globe and bring internet to third world countries, I want to be able to provide health to people so that they can actually regain a certain level of connectedness to their spiritual guide within. There's food. I'm sure you've eaten something before that you've got the itis, right? Where you're just like, I can't think. There's brain fog and all of this stuff. That's real, right? Because of the food that you ingested, the chemicals that it produced, and what it goes, because it can penetrate the blood-brain barrier, you create this fog in your head. Your pineal gland gets blocked by certain things. There's just different. I don't want to get scientific with people because then you start to lose people and they're all like, oh, whatever.
Right.
Right. I'll feed anybody, but I'm not for everybody.
Uh-huh.
So I want to build the largest franchise in American history. It's not for the monetary benefit of it, though. It's for the health benefit of it. It's my way of battling for the health of humanity, because there's someone else out there. There are other entities out there who are looking at us as dollar figures.
Yes.
See, it's very lucrative to keep people sick and treat them. Mm-hmm. That's a very lucrative business. You can look it up for your own self. Right now, there's 1.5 something billion people on this planet that are influenced by diabetes, whether pre-diabetes or full diabetes, type 2, which is food related. That's a $19.1 billion industry right now, and growing exponentially.
Yeah.
So that's where Waffles and Whatnot comes to play, where Aivalution comes to play. Because Waffles and Whatnot is one of my dreams, we've evolutionalized Waffles and Whatnot. So I have the VAs. Brother, if you go on my podcast, The Sauce of Life, mm-hmm. all I do is have an interview. I'm able to exist in my element, which is to have an authentic conversation with you. The moment that I'm done, that gets uploaded into a Google Drive, and I have VAs from around the world that do various aspects of dissecting that. They pull out the transcripts. They cut it up into reels, into shorts. They post it in LinkedIn, all these various places where they have it. I don't even know the login credentials for my accounts because the VAs take care of all of that stuff.
Yeah.
All of it. I could right now reach out to my VA and ask them where I'm at financially, and they'll tell me exactly how much money I have available to spend, or my logistics manager, how much he has to be able to go and get the next group of supplies, XYZ. So do I need to know those things? No. Why? Because I have an Aivalution team behind me doing those things. This is what Aivalution is doing. There's people that have these dreams and they say, you know what? I've been doing this, but I feel called to do this. I just haven't had the team behind me to do it.
Yeah.
And we say, you know what? If you're brave enough to step out there and do that thing, if you're brave enough to jump, we know how to build parachutes. Mm-hmm. And if we don't know how to build parachutes, we at Aivalution will actually jump with you. So we're falling at the same time as you are, and we're building right there with you. We got our sewing kits and we're stitching up stuff.
While you're in the air falling, yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, man. Wow. Derrick, man, there's so many aspects to your story and what you've talked about that has been a joy, man. I've been inspired so much. But we're at the point of the podcast where we are at the tail end, actually. And this is the part I like to call the deep end. And this is the point of the podcast where I ask people, my guests, the advice question, and specifically the advice to the younger generation. But for you, Derrick, considering everything you've talked about, I think I'm just going to open it up to advice to any and all human beings listening to this right now. That honestly, I mean, anyone could benefit from this. Like, we never know. Amidst everything that you've experienced and gone through in your life, and all the way up until this moment that you are in your life right now, in this season, in this journey, what advice would you give to all peoples out there that are, it could be people that are going through self-image and self-esteem issues, that have mental health issues, that might be experiencing bullying, that have an idea that they don't know how to jumpstart it, or they're just, they could be in any season of life. What's your general advice for them?
Few things. Thank you for the question. Life didn't happen to you. It happened for you. If you learn to change your perspective on the things, the experiences of your life, then you can begin to realize that they happened for you. How can you use them as fuel? How can you use those as the foundation to stand on and propel you forward? Nothing that you've gone through is unique. There is something that has happened to you that right now you feel that you're alone, but you're not alone with. Do some research and you'll find someone that has used that very same thing that's holding you back as fuel to propel them forward. And since success leaves clues, they may have left you a pathway to turn that into that tragedy or that trauma into triumph for your life. Every successful person that I've ever met, every single one of them, they have three things in common. And this is what I'll end with, brother. Three things. They have a dream. They take informed action towards that dream, and they don't quit. That's it. You have a dream. You have that vision, that seed that's been planted inside of you that only you can hear. They take informed action. Regardless of what that dream is, you begin to take little micro steps on a day-to-day basis towards the attainment of that dream or goal or whatever that thing is. And then you don't quit. That means through the divorces, through the heartaches and the heartbreaks, through the foreclosures, through the bankruptcies, whatever it is, the broken bones, you don't quit. You can have the dream, you can have the seed that you plant into the ground. You can know because of historical references, the typical germination period. You can water it, you can put fertilizer around it, you can control the sunshine, you can shoo away the insects, you can pull the weeds, you can do all of that. But there's an energy outside of you that controls when that thing pops out of the ground. That's what you have to focus on. Just know that it will eventually pop out of the ground. You just keep doing the day-to-day things that you need to do.
Man, Derrick, man, thank you. Thank you, Derrick. Thank you for those amazing nuggets. I'm blown away. I really don't know how to even, I've had to have a hard time. Usually I don't have a hard time transitioning, but this one, man, I was just, you would say something and then you would get done talking and then I would just soak it in. And then I'd be like, how do I even pivot from here generally? So thank you so much, Derrick. But before I close, where can people find Waffles and Whatnots? You know, where you guys spread out, where are the locations, in even Aivalution, where can people get connected with that?
Appreciate that, brother. So for Aivalution, you can go to aivalution.com, AIVAlution.com. For Waffles and Whatnot, you can go to wafflesandwhatnot.com, or you can follow us on social media, Instagram specifically at waffles_whatnot. And then if you want to connect with me, just visit derrickgreens.com, DERRICK Green, GREENS.com, derrickgreens.com.
There we go. There you guys have it. Derrick Green, thank you so much again for your time. I hope everyone here enjoyed this awesome episode. I'm allowed of some words. I'm sure a lot of you guys are probably are too, but I hope whoever is listening to this, you know, if you're going through a rough season, right, and you may be viewing it as a rough season, but it could be a transformative season, just like Derrick was talking about, right? I hope that this gave you the inspiration you needed to go another day at it, to go after your dream, to take that action, you know, have that dream, take informed action, and don't quit, as he said, those 3 points. So I've taken away from that. I hope you guys have, and we will catch y'all on the next one. Until next time, guys. Peace. What is up, y'all? Thank you so much for tuning in to that episode. Make sure to click the subscribe, follow button, as well as the bell to get notified on all my new content that is coming out every Wednesday and every other day. And make sure to click that link in the description down below to get access to all my socials and any other platforms that I have my podcast on. And until next time, y'all, peace.